Welcome to the ID Den podcast, the show for teachers ready to step outside the classroom and into their next chapter. I'm your host, Charity Bosch, and I know firsthand how overwhelming it can feel to leave teaching behind. Whether you're exploring instructional design, navigating corporate culture, or just figuring out your first steps, this show is your roadmap. Each episode will tackle the real challenges, share practical strategies, and prove that your teaching skills are exactly what the world needs, just in a different setting. Let's turn that classroom expertise into your career advantage. In today's episode, we are going to do a little exercise, and I am going to walk you through some values identification. Why do values matter in career transitions, you might ask yourself? Well, most people skip this step and then they wonder why they feel stuck. Your values are your internal compass when external validation fails. It's important to have values clarity when you are making career decisions, because if you don't, this can lead to regret or ending up in the same place you started out in. Keep in mind that your values change as you grow. What mattered to you at 22 isn't going to be the same as what matters to you at 35. And when your values aren't aligned, it can create that feeling that something's off. Think about it as the warning light in a car. It's letting you know something's not right. Let's pay attention to this. Inside of you, if your values are misaligned, that is also going to create that same sort of feeling that, hey, something's off, something's not right. I need to pay attention to this. Now, there is a values trap that comes with teaching. The education system often dictates your values for you. Think about these values: service, sacrifice, putting others first. Those are common values of the education system. That's what's expected of you. And many teachers have never identified their personal values on their own separately outside of that environment. Your classroom culture can sometimes override your individual preferences and values. And a lot of times with the education system, you feel guilt when you're prioritizing your personal values over the greater good or the good of others. Most of the time, burnout, that teaching burnout you're feeling, isn't the sole result of feeling overworked, underpaid, underappreciated. Those, of course, contribute to burnout, but it could also be because your job isn't in alignment with your values. You have that misalignment. You have that warning indicator light going off inside of you. So let's dive into what core values really are before we get going down the identification process. Core values are not aspirational qualities you wish you had. They are the principles that are going to guide your decisions when no one else is watching. They are what energizes you versus what drains you. They are how you want to feel in your daily life, including your work life. They give insight into what you're willing to sacrifice for and what you're not willing to sacrifice for. So I'm going to walk you through a guided values discovery process. We're going to go through some questions to get your brain in the right space. Then we're going to talk about some example values to get you thinking about what you truly value in life. This is a great episode to listen to when you are able to jot some things down, and I'll have a values list available for download as well. But this might be an episode that you are listening to initially and then you want to come back to later and kind of go through the exercise and think about the questions, write down your answers to the questions. This is meant to be a very actionable episode for you to start guiding you down the path that you want to go down. That brings me to question number 1. What drives you? When you think about what drives you, I want you to start thinking about what gets you excited to start working. When do you feel most engaged and alive? What types of problems do you naturally want to solve? What causes or missions make you want to contribute? Start thinking about the things that get you up and going in the morning. Question 2, what makes you tick? That might seem a little bit similar to the last question, but it is slightly different. Think about what working conditions help you thrive. Do you prefer collaboration or independent work? How important is it for you to be recognized for the work you do versus how important is it to you to have autonomy in your work? What pace of work feels sustainable to you? So now we're getting a little bit more tactical with this. What really allows you to thrive in your work environment? Question 3, how do you want to feel? And this question can sometimes make people pause and kind of stop in their tracks because that's not a question that teachers are asked often. You're told how you should feel, how you should approach your work, your students, difficult students, struggling students, all these different things. And a lot of times as teachers, we aren't asked how we want to feel or even how we feel. So think about how you want to feel. At the end of a workday, what emotional state do you crave? For me, when I was a teacher at the end of the workday, I craved buffering. I craved dissociation. I didn't want to use my brain. I wanted to rot on the couch and watch a TV show and fall asleep at 8 o'clock. So think about, instead of how you currently feel, how you want to feel. What feeling states energize you versus drain you? How important is variety versus predictability? Do you want to feel challenged? Do you want to feel supported, creative, stable? Think about how you want to feel at the end of the day. For me, at the end of the day, I wanted to have energy to give to my children and my husband. Teaching was not doing that for me. Teaching was exhausting me. It was draining me. I didn't want to feel drained at the end of the day. So think about how you want to feel. Question 4. What makes you not feel your best? So this one is usually a little bit easier to pinpoint. A lot of times it's like when you're asked to reflect on an observation and when they lead with, what do you feel went well? You're racking your brain for what went right. Versus when they ask, what do you think could be improved? You have a laundry list of items. So this question's a little bit easier most of the time for people to answer because you know what makes you not feel your best. Are there certain work situations that make you feel anxious or resentful or angry? When do you find yourself procrastinating or avoiding tasks? A lot of times we can have procrastination because something might seem scary or difficult, but a lot of times we're procrastinating because we just don't want to do the thing. What types of conflicts or pressures affect you the most? What environments or people drain your energy? Start thinking about what makes you not feel your best, because those are going to be the things that you're going to want to avoid. And then question number 5, the last question to get you in the right headspace. What makes you lose track of time? When you're in that flow state and you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's been 2 hours. I had no idea it had been that long. I was so focused. I was so into what I was doing. I was enjoying it. What types of things are you doing when that happens for you? What activities feel effortless for you even when they might be challenging? What would you do even if you weren't getting paid for it? When do you feel most like yourself? And there's that old adage of, if you love what you're doing, you're not going to work a day in your life. That's bullcrap. Calling that out. Sometimes we love what we're doing and it still feels like work. And there's aspects of things we love that we don't particularly like. That's not the point of this question. It's to help you identify like what gets you in the groove, what gets you going, what are you so excited about doing that you couldn't care if you were getting paid or not. So now that we have the questions, hopefully you're in the right headspace thinking about these things. Let's talk about the core values list. I want you to choose 5 values that resonate most strongly with you. Don't overthink it. Go with gut reactions. I'm going to read some options to get you going, but this is not an exhaustive list. If you think of something that is not mentioned, feel free to add it, and start with a lot. Anytime a word speaks to you, write it down, circle it, whatever you need to be doing. And you're going to start with a lot, and then you're going to start grouping them together by likeness to figure out what your top 5 are. So the list I want you to think about is achievement, autonomy, adventure, advocacy, affection, ambition, appreciation, attitude, balance, bold, belonging, career, collaboration, change, clarity, communication, community, compassion, flexibility, daring, dedication, dependability, empathy, excitement, family, fame, freedom, friendship, generosity, grace, gratitude, growth, hardworking, harmony, humor, honesty, inclusivity, innovation, inspiration, intelligence, joy, kindness, leadership, learning, love, loyalty, mindfulness, openness, passion, patience, peace, personal development, power, pride, prosperity, resilience, respect, service, security, self-respect, strength, success, teamwork, transparency, wealth, wellness, wisdom, and then start thinking about which of those spoke to you. Then you're going to group them together by likeness. For example, you might group together belonging, community, connection, family, or dependability, loyalty, security, or contentment, gratitude, peace. So once you start grouping them together, try and pick the 5 groups that stand out to you the most. Sometimes those are the ones with the most words. And then look at those groupings, and of the group, pick the one that speaks to you the most. And that's kind of how you start a little bit more high level, a lot of options, and start whittling it down until you get to your top 5. Sharing about my personal journey, I originally went through this exercise similarly as part of a course that I purchased when I was getting ready to leave my full-time job and start on my entrepreneurial journey. And that was back in fall of 2023, so about 2 years ago. And at that time, when I went through the exercise, my top 5 values were adventure, connection, contentment, freedom, and passion. And some of those things really scream entrepreneurship, especially that adventure, freedom, passion. And those values guided my business decisions. They guided what I was doing in my work. I wanted time freedom. That was a really big thing for me, being able to set my own schedule, dictate when I start and end, dictate if I could go to my kids' school events or doctor's appointments or go get my hair done. At that moment in my life, I really craved that freedom. And so it made sense for me to leave my full-time job, start on this journey, and create that business. My values now have changed. So my 5 values now are passion, belonging, prosperity, peace, and security. My values have changed as a result of life. Life happens, things change in life, and values change. And so it's okay if over time your values change. It's not like these are set in stone things that are never going to change and they're going to be your North Star forever. But as a result of life, as a result of my experience, as a result of the adventure that I've had, my values have changed, and I am now transitioning back into corporate based work. I am leaving my business behind, not this one, and I am transitioning back into corporate life. And kind of the 2 main values that I have now that have influenced this decision were belonging and security. Freelance work has been very fulfilling. It has been very enjoyable to me. However, it's not perfect. I don't ever want to make you feel misled or that I'm duping you or anything like that, because while freelance comes with a lot of perks, I have enjoyed it. I do think still that the majority of the workforce is going to be freelance over time. I have missed working with a team. I would say probably between belonging and security, the belonging value has been what has been missing from my life as an entrepreneur. I miss working on a team. I miss working towards shared goals within an organization. I miss being surrounded by people that are all working together to accomplish the same mission and vision. I have my own mission and vision for my business, but it's very different when you're working by yourself. Even if there were times where I've had to hire subcontractors, it's not like they're part of my company and share the same mission and vision and values, right? So that belonging piece, I really felt over the last couple of years that was something that I valued, that maybe I didn't realize at the beginning of this journey, but that I realize now is I really want that belonging. The other piece is security. I have mentioned this in my Instagram stories. Somebody had asked a question, gosh, a while ago. I think it's been a couple months at this point, but about, when work is fast and when it's slow, when things pick up, when it's hard to find jobs, things like that. In freelance, for me, when there were moments that weren't as busy, that were harder to pick up jobs, that's when the lack of security picked up for me. And that belonging came back around in that fact. I want to have the security of knowing what's coming, and I will add a disclaimer to that. You can be let go from a company at any point. I've been let go from companies. I've had startup work that the startup failed and I lost my job. So I don't want you to think that like a W-2 9 to 5 job is more secure than freelancing, because in this day and age, it really isn't. It's just, again, looking at your values and what you value more at this point in time. The security that is offered through a W-2 job that is different than a freelance job is what I value. So my values have changed. Those value changes have led me to going back to the corporate environment. And this is why it's important to have your personal values identified, because they become your decision-making filter. They are what everything filters through, and what you ask yourself, is this in alignment with my values? If it's not, make a change. For me, my values changed. My freelance work is no longer in alignment with my values, so now I'm making a change in my job, and that's okay. My job was fine. I was making fine money. I was able to support my family, all of those things. I could continue freelancing. My values have changed, and that type of work is no longer in alignment with that. And that's okay, because we grow and we change as people, and life happens and we experience things and we learn things. And I never want you to feel like just because you made one choice, you're stuck with it forever. It's okay to change your mind. And that comes into play with leaving the classroom. Leaving the classroom is not something that I've ever regretted. I have always been glad with that decision. I made that decision before I even had personal values to know if they were in alignment. But at that point, I had that warning light. I had something that was, this feels off. This isn't what I want. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. And I never sat down and identified my values. I wish that I had. I wish I had someone to walk me through this exercise back then. But I ended up figuring it out that the work wasn't in alignment and I needed to make a change. Let's talk about how you use these values to guide your career decisions. You are going to use your values you have now identified and give it some time. Identify them, put them on a Post-it note up somewhere you can see it every day, maybe the door on your way out, and look at them, think about them, analyze them. It's okay to change them. Like, they're not set in stone the second you write them down. So look at them, think about them. I know for me, it's like, oh, I did it. I'm done. I'm moving on. And these are them. But it doesn't have to be that way. Give yourself a week, give yourself a couple weeks, give yourself a month to really like, okay, these feel right. This feels like what I value. And then use those as you look at either staying in teaching, or if you're like, nope, teaching is not in alignment with these values that I have, I need to make a change. Use them as you start evaluating job opportunities. Look at red flags when your values don't align with a company culture. Salary is never going to be enough if your values are mismatched. And I've been there. I was making over $100,000 a year and I looked to leave the company because my values weren't in alignment with the company. It wasn't in alignment with corporate work at that point, and the salary was great. It wasn't enough. You can make all the money in the world, but if your values are mismatched, it's not going to work out. You're still going to feel burnt out. You're still going to feel frustrated. That warning indicator light's still going to be going off inside of you. So don't look at just the salary. The salary might be important, especially if one of your values is wealth, but you want to make sure that you're looking at your other values to also be part of your compass to make your decisions. You are going to use your values to come up with questions to ask in interviews to assess if the company would be a good fit for you. It's not always you being a good fit for the company. The company also needs to be a good fit for you. So when values conflict, you might have to make some trade-offs. You're going to have to decide what is more important to you. So it also helps to kind of rank your values to what you feel is most important out of your 5 versus the least important. And I'm not saying it's not important. It's one of your 5 values, right? It's there for a reason out of all these other words that you've heard. But it is helpful when it comes to job searching to order those things so that when there is a conflict in values, one of your values is being met while another one might be violated. You are able to say, well, the one that's being met is a higher priority value to me than the one that is being violated. I think I can work with this, or sometimes it's just not going to work for you. And then you move on to the next thing. You want to make sure that you're living your values during your transition, using your values to stay motivated during the job search. Not going to lie to you, this market is a tough market. It is easy to feel discouraged and overwhelmed, but that's where your values can come into play to continue motivating you to move forward. It's also helpful if you can figure out how to communicate your values professionally, because this allows you to bring up your values in interviews, in applications, while still being professional so that you can set boundaries based on your values right off the bat. Values clarity is going to help reduce your decision anxiety, especially when it starts coming to those offers, because you're going to accept the offer that is most in alignment with your values. And it takes that anxiety of, am I making the right decision or not, off the table, because if you're making the decision in alignment with your values, it's the right decision. And it's also going to help give you patience when the market doesn't immediately align with your values. You're going to have some interviews, you're going to look at some job postings, you're going to go through some applications where you're like red flags all over the place. And so it's going to help kind of bring you back to like, no, I don't want to just go back into the environment I'm trying to leave. So I'm going to have patience and I'm going to hold out until I find the right fit for me in my values. So your action plan from this episode is to narrow your values list to a top 5. Define what each value means to you specifically. If you choose adventure as a value, what does that look like? Does that mean you're traveling? Does that mean you get to take risks? Think about what the value means to you specifically, because adventure to me might mean something completely different to you. And then identify those current misalignments in your work life and use those values to evaluate transition opportunities. Make sure that you have regular check-ins because, like I have had over the last 2 years, your values evolve. You experience things, you go through life, and those things are going to change. And it's okay for those to change. It's okay for you to change your mind. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Share this episode with your teacher friends who are considering a change. Connect with me on Instagram at @theIDDen. Values work isn't one and done. Revisit them regularly, and it's okay if they change over time. Clear values are going to help make difficult decisions, including the one of whether you should leave the classroom or not, easier. Your values are valid even if other people don't understand them. That's the whole point of personal values. They're personal to you, and not everyone is going to share the same values, and that's okay. Your career satisfaction is going to increase when your work aligns with your values.